Hey, thanks for joining me today for this episode of Curves Welcome, a podcast about facing and embracing the curves of life. If this is your first time tuning in, this is Susie Carr. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'd like to welcome a special guest to the podcast today, Felice Cohen. She's here to chat with us today about ways you can declutter your life. Felice, it is great to have you here today. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Susie.
So you've got an interesting background about how you've lived large in small spaces. There's an infamous YouTube video of you that I've seen about how you lived in 90 square feet in an apartment in New York City while you were writing your first book. Can you share your experience with us about that and a bit about your background?
Sure. So I grew up on Cape Cod in a large home, and I had a walk-in closet. I had two walk-in closets that together were almost 90 square feet. And as a kid, for fun, I would take everything out. I would reorganize it. I would put it back. I had no idea I could or would become a professional organizer. When I was in college, I would organize dorm rooms in exchange for slices of pizza, because that's what you do. And then when I graduated, my grandfather and I were so close, and he had asked me to write his story about his Holocaust experience. And I thought, okay, so it was kind of thinking about being a writer and moving to New York. And then I saw a woman on TV who organized apartments for a living. And I thought, I can do that in my sleep. So I'm going to move to New York. And that's what I did. I worked as an organizer, and I was with billionaires and hoarders and everybody in between, famous people. It was crazy. It was fun. I loved doing it. It's like jigsaw puzzles. And then I had other jobs. I worked for the Daily News. I was chief of staff to the president at Hunter College. And then my grandfather got cancer, and he said, I want you to finish the book. And now he's calling it a book. So I was like, oh, okay. So I thought, I have to quit my job. There's no way. I was working so many hours. So I found a tiny apartment. The rent was low enough that I could still organize a couple clients, and I didn't have to worry about rent so much. And it was 90 square feet. And one of the papers I worked for heard I lived in a tiny place, and they said, write an article about how to organize it. And then a woman contacted me about making a video. So she came and made the video. And when the video came out, it came out shortly after my grandfather's book came out. Now, my grandfather's book, I never expected to sell any copies. Thanks to the video, it sold around the world. It sold thousands of copies. And I was just like, whoa, this is great. Because of the tiny video, people would email me and ask for my advice on organizing and decluttering. And so that's what was the impetus for writing my second book, about how to, organize and declutter a small space. And it was also about how living tiny made my life larger, because I had moved into 90 square feet, which is the circumference of my Honda Accord. And because of that, it opened up my world. And suddenly I was being asked to speak all over the country on organizing, on my grandfather, and talking about the Holocaust. So suddenly I was a Holocaust educator as well. And it just proved to be the best gift. It was almost like it was fate that I moved into that tiny place, and then the tiny place did a marketing job of the books.
Wow, that is really fascinating. 90 square feet, the circumference of a Honda Accord. Now, I had a Honda Accord, so I know what that size is. And
12 feet by 7.5 feet. So like Michael Jordan could touch both walls.
Wow. Now, I just have to ask, when you first moved into these 90 square feet, what was your initial thought? Were you like, God, okay, this is really ridiculous of me to even consider doing this? Or I don't know, what was your attitude towards it?
Well, before I moved in, I went and looked at it. It was a friend of a friend who had the place. So I went and looked, and I brought a friend with me, and we walked in, and there was just stuff everywhere. There was a futon, a table, clothes, garbage, bookcases, stuff everywhere. And there's a little ladder up to the loft bed. You've seen the video. Everybody knows about the loft bed. You can't sit up in it. But my friend was like, we got to get out of here. You can't live here. And I thought to myself, it's just for a year. I'm an organizer. I'm trained at seeing the order amid the chaos, because we don't take up space. It's our stuff that takes up space. So when I moved back in, a couple of weeks later, I had put 77 boxes of stuff into storage. I ended up getting rid of all those boxes over 5 years that I was in, because you realize you don't need it or want it. And I organized the place. I know, like Manhattan, you have to go up. So I got these shelves and everything kind of went in totes and went up. And suddenly it was just like when I was working, the whole space was my office. When I was preparing my meals, the whole space was my kitchen. And when I was doing yoga, the little strip of space was my yoga studio. But, I was in Manhattan. I was a block from Central Park. So the city became my backyard. And in New York City, you go out and you meet people everywhere and you walk, and so this was my little space. And what I realized was that was my priority, because when I speak at tiny house festivals, I always tell people before you do it, because it's not easy, is to have your why. And for me, every time I would be like, I wish I had a couch, or I wish I could cook something on a stove because I didn't have a kitchen, I would remind myself of my why, which was to write my grandfather's book. And I had only planned to stay 1 year, but at the end of that 1 year, my life was so much better. I wasn't getting up to go to a crazy job. I would get up when I wanted to, or I'd go for bike rides, and I was still working, but I was doing it on my own schedule, and that was worth so much more.
There's a lot of value in being able to have that sort of freedom of personal space, of personal time, not being so bogged down with having to work like a major full-time job that's really strenuous that you don't even like because you have to pay the bills, or worse, having to do 2 or 3 jobs on top of that. I mean, I think I've worked pretty much my whole life. I've done at least 2 jobs at once, and I continue to do that. Now, I like what I do. I do. But, I always say, my spouse and I always have this conversation, and we say, if we could just figure out how to get rid of all of our stuff, we could live in a little trailer and travel the world and still work remotely and be able to really enjoy life. And so that is sort of a goal in a way, is to be able to declutter, simplify, and just be able to do that. And so I think there's a real art and science to that. And I'm really curious to pick your brain about that. Before I do, I just want to say to my listeners that I'm going to post that video, a link to the video, in the show notes, in case you're really curious about this video, because it really, I've watched it and it's fascinating. So you just tune into that video. It'll blow your mind. But getting back to this, what are your views on clutter in regards to how it affects us as people?
Yeah. So clutter affects us in lots of ways. I always say this, it's really 2 major ways. One is emotionally. When you see clutter, it is overwhelming. It creates anxiety. It tells you, you should be cleaning this up. You should be going through this. You should be doing blah, blah, blah. And it makes you feel bad. So right away, you feel defensive, you feel frustrated, you feel sad, you get depressed, anxious. I've had clients this one woman, one of my very first clients, sweetest woman, she had a business, a master's in business, a law degree, and she had every paper she'd ever written and book all around her living room. You couldn't sit on her couch, couldn't sit at the dining room table, the floors, everything. And her bedroom was filled with clothing, because along the way she had gone from like a size 18 to a size 8. So she had full wardrobes. And so she hadn't had people over in years, so she felt isolated. And a lot of people do feel isolated. And also there's the safety aspect when you get into I'll get into the physical part, but she just felt like she just had no life. So we got rid of stuff, and I don't tell anybody to get rid of stuff, but I had to encourage her, and I had to show her how much better her life could be. So, now we have Google. It was just at the time of Google. I said, everything you learned can now be found on Google. So we got rid of books, paper, little by little. We could see the floor, we could see the couch, we could see the dining room table. And then she said, well, I want to save the clothes that are larger in case I get back to that size. I said, that's wishful thinking. We don't want to go back to that size. If you do, that's fine. No judgment, but let's get rid of it. By the time your body changes or whatever, they'll be out of fashion. So we got rid of kind of that emotional, because that's a big thing. But then there's also the physical aspect of clutter, which is, like I said, safety, fire hazard, mold, mice, bugs. I've seen it all. Rats. I've seen it all. Also, there's, safety, because I also teach a class for elderly, tripping, or you don't want to trip over stuff. You want to also feel clean. And like you were saying, you have a lot of stuff. What do you have to do? You have to work to pay for that stuff. So you have to work more, and you have less time to actually use that stuff, to wear that stuff, to eat that stuff. We have food in our cabinets that go bad. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So we have all these things. But at the end of the day, for me, it's about time, because this is worth most that of anything we can own is time, because you want to have more time to do the things you love. So whenever I work with any client, my first question is always, what do you love to do? And the second question is, why don't you do it more often? And the answer is usually because of stuff. You have to clean the stuff, work to pay for the stuff, organize the stuff. So it's about finding your priorities and what you want.
It's really powerful. One of the things that I was thinking of when you were speaking about clutter is that emotional part is when, my spouse and I have the conversation a lot about there are certain things, like maybe it's a tool that we haven't used in 5 years, but what if we need it, right? What if we need it 5 years down the road? Now we got to go buy it again. And that's always been both of us. It's kind of our little argument as to, we just need to save this stuff. We need to we can put it in the attic. Our attic is filled to the brim. I'm afraid to go up there. But I imagine, oh, we might need that shovel one day for the yard that we don't have, but we might have a yard that we need a shovel, right? What would you say to somebody about that?
Oh, that's a big thing. We call those the just in case items, and we all have them. How many old cell phone plugs do you have? Like ridiculous keychains from some event you went to. And for the most part, you're never going to need it. And if you need a shovel, you know what? If you think of that shovel and you donate that shovel now to someone who needs it now, you'll feel better than when you really need a shovel. You maybe borrow one or you go get a shovel. Chances are it really depends on what it is, because it's the same with sentimental items. You save all the stuff because it's sentimental, but if it's up in your attic, how sentimental could it be? Or you really have to at some point say, what do I really need? And those just in case, maybe you say, I take one tote. I'll go through everything. Only when I fill this one tote, that's all I can keep for just in case. Everything else has to go. It's not easy, but you know what? It's your life and you're paying that space. You're paying for square footage of storing that space. You mean, you could put a Zumba, studio in your attic instead of storage.
Love it. I love Zumba, so that would
Yeah,
work
there you go.
really great for me. I don't know if the floors would hold up, but it's a great concept. I really like that. The just in case tote. That's a beautiful concept. And that's something that's practical. And that's something I feel like emotionally people can wrap themselves around, that idea of you don't have to take everything out. You have this tote, and like you really have to prioritize and think about what is the most important and why is it important to put that in there? Is it really important? What if there's something else that's even more important? So I think that helps people to prioritize their important items.
Sure. And I will be generous and let you each have your own. You and your spouse can each have your own tote.
That's great. That would work. That would work wonderfully. Felice, what are some of the biggest lessons you learned from living large in a small space?
Well, I have to reiterate that it's about time, because I only planned to stay 1 year and I stayed 5. And I only left after 5 because I was evicted because of the tiny video. The landlord saw me on Good Morning America and I was subletting. I wasn't supposed to. But that being said, I got so much more from living with so much less. And I got more time to do the things I love to do. My savings grew, if you could believe it. I ended up buying a place after, because I wasn't buying a lot of stuff. My credit card bills went down because I had no place to put it. So my freedom went up. I got more happiness. I got more everything that you could want. It was like, oh, Felice, you want to go for a hike? Okay, let's just go. And it was a Tuesday at 11. Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I could get up at 7 in the morning and start working. I could work till 10 at night, different things, but I could stop at a moment's notice and do what I wanted to do. I got more of my life and what I love to do. And it was just this freeing experience. I didn't have to work so much more to pay for stuff I had so little time to use. And, even my clothes that I whittled down to bring, I barely wore any of it. So, I mean, we kind of wear the same thing, especially now in a pandemic. I mean, it's like, if it passes the smell test, I'll wear it again. It's like, whatever,
Absolutely.
where are we going? But
that's funny you say that, because the t-shirt I'm wearing right now, this is like my favorite t-shirt. It is my go-to t-shirt for working at home. It's just comfortable and, it looks okay. And so absolutely. I mean, how dirty am I getting it? Sitting in my dining room at my dining room table, which is now my office because we're on remote working. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I could definitely use an organizer because it is really hard. Speaking of pandemic wise, a lot of people used to work in an office building and now they're working from their homes. And sometimes they're working, multiple people living in the same household are working from home, which is the case for us. And so I've taken over our dining room. That's my new office. And I'm sitting on my dining room table and I've got, you know, a setup over here for my laptop and a setup over here for my drawers that hold my stuff for work, and trying to keep myself organized. And it's evolving now. It's becoming more organized as the time is growing for me to be here. But there's something to be said about, I can't stand having things all over my dining room table, like my ruler and my, you know, my pen and a calculator. I'd rather have those in a little drawer that if I need the calculator, I pull it out. So there's something to be said about that emotional clutter, the physical clutter, and what it does to you emotionally. I know it blocks my creativity when I see clutter. It drives me crazy. I think so much more clearly when everything's just wide open. I have a space and it feels really good. Now, do you have any advice on how people can become less cluttered in life if they don't have an organizer or can afford to hire an organizer to help them? Are there, you know, are there little tips that you would give people?
Sure. I think the first thing you want to do is tell yourself, it's not easy for everybody. For me, it's a jigsaw puzzle. I love it. But for a lot of people, it's not easy. So don't beat yourself up. There are tips to make it better. Like when you're at work right now, I would have, instead of drawers and stuff or rulers and calculators, I'd have a little tote bag. And then at the end of the day, everything goes in the tote bag. The tote bag goes in the closet and you can sit down and have a nice meal at your dining room table. But I can't work. I can't write when I see clutter as well. So for me, I think of my home as a jigsaw puzzle. Okay. So the home is the frame and all your stuff are the pieces that fit inside. So when you do a jigsaw puzzle, every piece has one place it goes for the most part. There are some challenging puzzles. I'm talking about basic puzzles. So everything has one place it goes. When you come home from doing food shopping, your eggs always go in the fridge. They always usually probably the same shelf or whatever. You don't put the eggs in your underwear drawer. Everything has one place it goes. So if you can come up with a place, a home for everything, your underwear goes here, your pots go there, Tupperware, snacks, everything goes in one place. What's left? What's still not put away? What are those things? Do you need them? Do you want them? If you really do, find a home for them. Is there something that's away that's taking up space that you don't really want or need? That's what goes. Because I got back to New York yesterday. I've been away in Massachusetts, and I had a lot of stuff to kind of put away, and it didn't take long because everything had a place. I paid a bill, that went there. I put this away, everything had a place. And so if you have first a place for things, that's what you do. But the first you want to kind of get rid of what you don't need and want. And that's the hard part. So I'll give you a few tips on that. One, I say, if I told you, okay, Susie, I want you to get rid of 5 things today. They could be a paper clip. They could be a Tupperware, missing a lid, an old sock. If I said, can you get rid of 5 things today? You'd probably say yes. Now, I do this when I do speak to large groups. Everybody raises their hand. I say, if you did that every day for a week, every day, that's 35 things. So if I said to you, can you go up in the attic every day, take rid of 5 things, just 5 things? And you'd probably, or 2 things or 1 thing. And you'd probably say yes, 1 thing. And then after a while, eventually it's little by little, or, we all have cell phones. I love setting my timer. If I really need to get my butt in the seat to write, I'll set my timer for 45 minutes, shut off my notifications and go. Because I know 45 minutes I can stop and I'm not, overwhelmed. So if I said, set your timer 45 minutes, go through the attic. When the alarm goes off, stop, you're done. Or you walk around your house, seeing what you can, one closet or whatever. Another thing, I do this with my mom, kids love this, is you take a pair of dice, you roll the dice, whatever number you get, that's how many things you have to get rid of. And when I say get rid of, I mean toss or recycle or donate. And this is a fun thing to do. Another thing is rewarding yourself. If I do those 5 things, if I do 45 minutes, then I get a reward. I can watch Netflix for an hour. I can eat a cookie, whatever, because sometimes that motivates me. Like I can't watch TV at night until I've done blah, blah, blah. I also think routines are big. if you have in your schedule book, which for most of us, it looks blank right now, but if your schedule book had 2:30 dentist appointment, you would stop whatever you were doing and go to that dentist appointment. If it says 2:30, get rid of 5 things, chances are you might be more likely to do it because you've scheduled it. So you kind of put yourself in the position of having to do it. I always say it's great to have a partner. If you live alone, you can maybe do this on Zoom, or, get rid of 5 things and show your friend, or say, go through your closet. Should I keep this? Does it look okay? You can, sometimes you need a little encouragement to say, you know what, that looks like it's from the 80s. Get rid of it. My sisters say that to me all the time. But, sometimes it's these little tricks, because at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like a task or a chore. It's more like a game. Put on music. Michael Jackson, Get You Moving, whatever gets you moving, Guns N' Roses, the whole gamut, anything, put it on for 20 minutes and just do something. Because it's like when you go on a diet and it's hard, but you lose 1 or 2 pounds, you get a little more motivated. I can do this. And the more you get accomplished, the more you see that you've done, you get a little more motivated. I can do this. I can do this. And that's encouraging, because it's not easy. But
No, I know what I love about what you just said. All of these little tips are easy to implement. They're not complex, which will make this, if they're easy, they're people more apt to do them, I should say. And at least that goes for me. And I love the simple tricks, as like the dice. That's a fun thing to do, especially if you have children and you want them to clean up their room, their closet. It's a great activity that keeps them engaged too, I would imagine. But it's one of these things that's goal oriented too, because I work well when I have a structure and a plan and goals. And so when you were saying the tips, they spoke to my soul, because I love timing myself. When I write, I do that. I use a timer. So I love the idea of setting the timer. If it's not 45 minutes, if somebody only has 10 minutes a day to do that, then set it for 10 minutes and find an item in that 10 minutes. And I feel like that would empower somebody too. By the time they're done with these fun ways of decluttering, they would feel empowered and they wouldn't feel bad. Because I feel like there's this whole bad feeling that comes with, you have to get rid of things. And it's almost like taking a piece of your heart. And the way you've framed it, it's not like that at all. It feels like it's wholesome, like it's a great activity. It's your well-being is at stake. And so thank you for that. That my biggest takeaway was the dice, because that will tell me, okay, today one item, I can do 6 items. And it's almost like, okay, there's structure there. And I love that. Thank you.
If you get doubles, you got to go again.
Oh, is that right?
No, you do what you want, but it is, you do feel good. And I always say, think of the donation box as a helping box, because you might think, well, why do I have 17 sweaters? Do I wear them? If I got rid of this one, would I really miss it? Somebody could really use that sweater. So you feel good about giving. You've made space in your home. You might get a tax write-off either way, but you do feel good about knowing you're helping others as well.
Yeah, you've inspired me to go into my kitchen today, and I think everybody has a junk drawer, right? A place where you just put all the odds and ends that you don't know what else to do with. And mine is so full that it gets stuck. I can't open it, and I have to put my hand in there and squeeze things down to open it up. So I feel very inspired to go through that drawer today. I know there's going to be more than 5 items, probably going to be 30 items, but honestly, there's only like 1 or 2 things that I go in that drawer for ever anyway. So maybe I should just keep those 1 or 2 items.
And that's probably, and I mean, I didn't get into it, but I have hot zones and cold zones, and a junk drawer is probably in a space where you could really put something you use every day in that drawer. So, all that stuff, maybe if you do, after a week, if you got rid of 5 things a day, then say, what do I really need that drawer for? Maybe, you want to keep at the end of your workday, that's where your calculator and your ruler go. That's your work drawer. And then you don't see it when at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. I love that. Thank you. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you think would lend value to this conversation about decluttering and reorganizing your life that you think listeners might find value in?
I think it's good to have your priority at the start, your why. Why are you doing this? Because it's going to get hard. there might be times where you get frustrated. You're going to be up in your attic and you're going to look around and you're going to feel like you're not making a dent. And why am I doing this? And how did we let it get like this? And you're going to, if your why is so that, you don't see it's out of sight, out of mind in the attic, but literally and figuratively, it's over your head. It's looming over your head. So if you have your why to remind you when you're up to your elbows in crap that's up in your attic, I'm doing this because I want to clear this out. I maybe want to have something else in here or just nothing in here. Remind yourself why I'm doing this. I want to have a Zumba room. I want to have peace of mind. I know when eventually we're going to move and we're going to have to do this. Or, you know what? If there's an extra room, my mother might have to come live with us eventually. Whatever the thing is, have that as a reminder. So it's not about cleaning the clutter. It's about having that end goal, because then you're working towards something and not just working away a mess.
Yeah, that's a really great way to look at it. Felice, this has been an incredible conversation. What I'd like to do is, can you tell people how they can connect with you?
Sure, telepathy. If that doesn't work, then they could always go to my website, felicecohen.com. You can email me, felfish11@gmail.com. It's all on my website. So FELICECOHEN. I'm sure you'll put it on your thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anybody feel free to send me an email and say, hey, I'm stuck in this closet. What do I do? I'm happy to give you a tip or two.
All right, that sounds great. It has been really wonderful chatting with you today, Felice. Thank you so much for coming on to the Curves Welcome podcast.
Thank you. It was great fun.
Hey friends, thanks for spending time with me today. I hope you enjoyed today's topic. If there is something you'd enjoy exploring in a future podcast, please reach out to me via my website at curveswelcome.com and I'll work it in. While you're there, grab a free story too. It's my way of thanking you for your support of my podcast and romance novels. Also, be sure to follow the Curves Welcome podcast channel to keep up on the latest episodes. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, go out there and continue to learn, grow, and embrace life's curves.